capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number, or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I know.
Really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. So, as we usually do every other weekend, I have Dan Platt of the Three Left Show and What's Left in Albany on. And we got some big topics to discuss this week, don't we, Dan?
Well, they're big and they're actually, and they're not big at the same time. Much like we're always moving forward and backward.
True.
Forward, not backward. Forward, not upward, but always twirling into the future.
Perfect. All right.
Recognizing that the contradictions between, or the struggle between capitalism and capitalists and workers, bourgeoisie versus proletarian, are not actually always the same struggles. The struggles between higher wage and low wage workers, and then the domestic versus international capitalists. These are all contradictions working against each other or with each other. The thing that struck me today, lots have been happening in the last 2 weeks, as there always usually is. Lots of things happening all the time. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's in Qatar, so. And I guess it's also election season, or Netanyahu's government's in trouble. They're getting some opposition pushback, so it's time for another war.
Right.
And a little more serious than the usual few rockets. So you got hair on fire. Israel's in the grip of war. They're in grip of it's got them by the balls.
Yeah, they're in the grip of war.
Anyway, that's today's news. And in tomorrow's Indigenous Peoples Day, if you're going to do anything, or even some state workers they're just floater days. But I'm not going to work.
Nice.
Don't know what I'm doing. Probably just chores. I've spent the last 2 days doing social things. Today I was doing some moving work. But get this. The U-Haul building where we were going to clean out my friend's storage unit at a U-Haul facility, and the elevators were down, so nothing could be moved out. And we're only told this, or we only find out because we just presumed the elevators would work,
of course,
and we weren't told otherwise by the clerks.
Thing. Uh-huh.
We already got the truck, and it would be more trouble and cost something to cancel. So U-Haul is freaking bullshit. Use Penske if they're in the area, but U-Haul is more around, especially in Albany.
Yeah.
They've got a facility right by the river. It is riverfront property, but it's a fucking U-Haul facility. That's what works there.
Yeah.
That's how land use works in America.
Right. Was it also a U-Haul storage facility, or was it just the truck you were using?
Well, it's both. It's a 6-story,
So they rented you
warehouse.
the truck and they wouldn't cancel it, even though.
Well, we didn't try, but I mean, we used it to move something else, but just not as much.
I see.
And because they hiked the price of the storage unit from $150 to $200,
Wow, how big is this storage unit?
What was it? Think 12 by 10. It's one of the larger sizes.
So a college dorm room, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could live in it.
Yeah.
You could definitely live in it. I mean, there's no heating and no water, but there was an outlet that was reachable. Well,
Oh.
you could run a cord to it.
Okay. So as
But
long as they
anyway.
didn't catch your cord, yeah. But
The
yeah.
idea was he kept his open so that he could do the business of his shop there, like it was storage, like for listing items online, and you could hypothetically do it there. He even brought a heated blanket to use. But anyway, he never got there to that point. So let's get to the thing that I care about.
Absolutely.
Back in June, you may recall during a stream, I probably laid out the concerns Green Party organizers would have about Cornel West. Just concerns that they could be met. They could be. Well, it turns out they were proven completely true. These concerns, the concerns that he's flighty, that he wouldn't stick to working with us, he wouldn't stick with working with anybody. Um, like many in America, he's quite actually anti-political. Doesn't like working with others, or is incapable of working with others just based on personality or habit.
That's a shame.
Um, it's a shame in many ways. There's a lot of different sides to it because people can react based on their own biases. For example, if whether or not they're green, if they're just a big Nader fan, a lot
Mm,
of people are greens because of Nader when he ran as a green.
right.
He did it again, so a lot of those Nader fans left as well.
True.
And they actually created like these secondary parties in places like Vermont and Oregon. And they call themselves like the People's Progressive Party or something.
Sure. Sure.
They're basically the movement for a People's Party, but 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And yeah, Movement for a People's Party has the same problem of maybe they could operate. They have enough people to basically operate in one state. But if you're going to be a national organization, well, it turns out you need more than 3 people to gain ballot lines and fundraise and run people for office. It's really, it takes quite a lot of number of people. And of course, the
Yeah.
Greens, in most cases, we don't have a lot of people, but we have
Right.
more than other groups.
More than other third parties,
And
for sure.
and our organization, I'm going to call it that rather than party because that's what I care about, is
Hmm.
a independent political organization.
Hmm.
And I think those 3 words are important because you can have independent things, but they're not organizations and they're not political. Or
Hmm.
it's like the triad of time, cost, and quality. You
Quality.
can
Yeah.
have 2, but not a third, or not all 3. That seems to be the case with American activists. Like, oh, I'll join an organization, but it has to be non-political. Or I'll join something that's independent, but it can't be like it has to be an anarchist cell or mutual
Hmm.
aid. And that way it's
Hmm.
also apolitical and not really an organization. Food Not Bombs. It's a type of organization, I guess. But again, independent, completely independent, but not political. Or you have something that's political, but it's not independent, which is most anything that's left leaning. But I'm not even gonna. We shouldn't. I don't think we should call any of that left because it's not radical. It's not working towards um, going beyond capitalism, or at least making use of the development of or to develop capitalism. I don't know. I guess there's a bigger Marxist conversation to have, but I'd like to pick your brain on some of those
Sure.
questions brought up by an author, Chris Catrone, which I'm reading,
Hmm.
who's and Douglas Lane. The way they talk about things.
Sure.
Uh, but anyway, I gave you that one clip
Yeah.
of it's the Rational National. He's a Canadian. He was run for office as well. So a few things. Cornel West has never run for anything. So that's point one that's important. He has never run for office. He doesn't know what it takes. A lot of people don't know what it takes. And you think that it's like, oh yeah, I'll run for office. I can do it. I'm a big name. I'm a celebrity even in many circles.
Yeah.
I have a brand. But that's all he is. I mean, besides the books he's written and his career, and he's an activist. And a single activist or activism is not the same as organizing. It's not the same as acting politically. And he uses very, very often the metaphor of music, that he's a jazz person.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fun. I mean, Adbusters is like, play jazz. Freedom is like playing jazz.
Hmm.
Um, the straight line is an ungodly thing, that kind of thing, and and but if everyone's like a soloist, it's just noise.
Yeah,
If you're going to make music, you need to do it in a group, even
has to
even
be
if it's a
some
even if it's a 5-piece band, right? A
right.
single working group.
Has to be
You're
some
working
concerted
with
effort.
you're working with a group, and I think
Right.
Cornel West has shown that he is not actually able to work in groups. He's never had to,
I mean
um, not in any committed way.
that pretty much dooms his chances, no matter which way he goes at this point. If that
It just
really is how he is.
Well, I'm projecting a bit based on what I'm observing and what I've
Hmm.
observed in others as well, who act like he does, who um balk at any not it's not a restriction, it's just a requirement for solid, like, for working together. The rejection of politics. And I guess this goes back to the 60s. Our grandparents rebelled against the organization, the mid-century bureaucracy, and the formation of capitalism in the first half of the 20th century was the consolidation, centralizing, bureaucratizing. These things never existed before 1920, and after to 1960, they became totalizing and suffocating. So there was a rebellion against it, a rebellion against being organized, a rebellion against being a
Hmm.
part of something where you actually have to, kind of give some of yourself, and it's not just a transaction where liberal, like, the only way we can be free and have liberal rights is to act in the free market, because that's where organizations don't count for anything unless it's a corporation, but then you're just doing that because you have to. Yeah, it's the acceptance of neoliberalism that in the 70s, the left was defeated. There was nowhere to go, or that's it was accepted by our grandparents and parents. It's something pointed out by real Marxists is that, like, we have to accept that the left failed. The New Deal was a failure on our part, or the 30s and 40s. There was a crisis of confidence with the interwar periods, and we come out weaker each time there's this
Mm.
crisis, um, until we're literally left with a left that is not just settling, but they're seeing the path forward as the same the same union contracts and social democracy, more statism, more uh, nicer capitalism, or just keeping
Yeah.
capitalism going.
Right.
uh that's
Smooth
the
out the
jack
edges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Jacobin, how can we manage the poor? We're not
Hmm.
going to relate to them at all. We're culturally different. They're transphobic, they're racist, and I understand not wanting to ignore that, especially when you're the one getting spat in the face by someone who's blue collar.
Hmm.
But
But
I don't
also,
know,
you don't have to relate to or like people to
to work with
want
them.
better for them and to work with them. Yeah.
Right, and that's, yeah, good point. So now you're getting me back on track on
Yeah.
what politics really is. What, like, there's this the phrase of coalition building is thrown around, but I don't know if these people, these activists, know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
because I've never seen such coalition building
No.
outside of them and a clique of friends who run other such organizations that may or may not be just all in the democratic orbit, or by that I
Right.
mean the duopoly orbit, or just beholden to capitalists. They have a donor, or I just saw another tragedy. We had a community owned and run grocery store, very small one though, but it was filling a food desert. It was meant to alleviate a food desert, and it was done by a African American cultural center. So it was a cultural center first and foremost. But they wanted to do actual material projects because when it comes to their neighborhood, there's real material needs.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, somehow, whether it's boards and executive directors are not elected, they're not chosen in any plebiscite or any process by clients or the community, whatever words you use, and they're always corrupt. They always fuck it up. In this case, the executive director had a private development business called Blue Light, and he transitioned it to be a nonprofit so he could meld it with the community center so he could develop this center. And in doing so, the funding for the grocery store was a combination of money from the county, but it was actually 3 large loans. And I don't know if it's not something, it's being related to me now in hindsight, but rule number 1 of being a nonprofit, you don't act like you're a business and take out loans.
You don't take on tons of debt. Yeah.
Because particularly whatever you're doing, it's not making a profit.
Right.
You know? What are you gonna pay the loan back with? A treadmill of grant writing or something? Like, oh, we're gonna use grants to pay back loans. Well, why don't you just get the grants, motherfucker? So this is what he was expecting. He was expecting to pay off the loans with like $1.5 million grant from our congressperson. But unless you have the contract in hand and the money in hand,
that's a big Hail Mary.
So they had 3 loans. One was from the county's resource commission, which I guess is just your small business type of lender. The Broadview, which is now 2 of our credit unions have merged, so it's like local banks, and the other is Key Bank, which is an Albany-based bank, but it's a standard bank, regional bank, and they have been making payments since February because they haven't been making any money. You can guess. Their prices are too high. They're not selling secondhand or ugly fruit. They're not doing the what was it called when the store is where everything's discounted. It's which is I guess the point, but it means that the prices are co-op level. And the only people paying full price are white people, and then everyone else has to basically pay on a sliding scale, which means there's no consistent pricing or revenue. Another complaint was that they were putting a lot of energy into making meals there and selling hot meals. Like, see, this community grocery store is in a former McDonald's, so you have the takeout windows there. So it's like, let's make use of this and have like a window for people to make pickups. But there's enough fast food. The point is to get people cooking with fresh ingredients.
Right. Yeah.
And they would only have one type of fruit at a time because it was based on supply. It was based on, they had partnerships with a few farms, one of which is from old money, but one is black owned and another is like a community, CSA. And they're not donating though. They're supplying, but they're only able to supply one fruit at a time. So one week they'd have pineapples, and one week they'd have oranges, and one week they'd have apples. And they weren't open on Sunday or Monday.
What?
Money pay wages 5 days of the week.
But why would you not pick Sunday? Like, Sunday is the busiest shopping day of the week.
It's the day I tried to check it out. I never got in the place. I came by on a Sunday and it was closed, and I was shocked. And I was like, but this is the day we're going to come by, because it's going to be closed if I try to like stop here before I go to do my show. It's not really what I'm aiming to do. Yeah, it was a shit show.
It sounds like it.
And not only is that going to go bust, but it's because there's now $1 million worth of loans. The whole community center is going to basically get gobbled. It's going to be put on the chopping block by it's got to be repossessed.
Yeah, because he tied everything
by Key Bank. He gambled big, I guess. But with other people's money.
Like, There's this group in Minneapolis called Sisters Camelot, and they
Mm,
take all of the stuff that co-ops reject, the ugly fruits,
sure.
the stuff that's too close to the sell-by date and stuff like that, and then they just
Right.
give it away for free.
But they're
Why
giving it away. They're not
they're giving it
selling it.
away? But yeah,
Sometimes there's a model of a store where they take all of that and they
mhm.
just sell it half price.
Yeah. Why not do that?
That
At
means
least
that way at least you collect enough to supply to
cover
actually,
the operating expenses. Yeah,
yeah, well, and supply an actual a full store that's larger than a
right.
bodega. A problem here was that it didn't seem to be bigger than a bodega.
I guess if
And
it's an
there's
old
a
McDonald's, it's
bodega,
probably not that big. So
and it wasn't
yeah,
a big McDonald's. This wasn't a suburban McDonald's.
okay.
But another crick in it is something that shocked me when I was reading about its formation was that this property, closed McDonald's and the lot around it's a fairly sizable lot, like an acre,
Hmm.
um, and it's right downtown. Um, it was owned by the Albany Housing Authority. This is a public benefit corporation because we're not allowed to have actual public businesses, but they act like businesses.
Hmm.
And in this way, they sold it to the community center for 350 grand, which I guess is kind of cheap for downtown property,
Hmm.
but kind of steep to be just selling it to a nonprofit, considering the Palace, which is a big 1920s theater that seats 1,000 people. It's Carnegie Hall kind of
Sure.
theater, and they sold it to a nonprofit for $1. That was the city in general, but you get my gifs of outrage here.
Yeah.
They won't sell city-owned property, though it's not technically city-owned property, but it very much is. They didn't sell it to the community center for $1. It's just fucking stupid. So I'm just using that as a case example that you have these organizations. They're not democratic. People who are involved don't know how to work together. They've never been taught how.
Yeah.
These are necessary skills. The ability to be political.
Yeah.
Occupy gave somewhat of an education, but it kind of depended on what you were doing there. If you
Hmm.
were in a working group, if you were actually involved with making decisions within a group of 10, let's say, working with other people and not just rage quitting whenever somebody made you feel bad. Which if I'm gonna be trite, that's kind of how Cornel West is kind of acting. But he's coming at it that we'll get to it. Let's watch the Rational
All right.
National clip. It's 10 minutes, but obviously it's him, mostly him talking. But
Sounds
we can react to how he says things.
very good.
It's difficult to play in the party band. It's difficult to have to deal with those constraints
What do you
and
mean
all.
impediments?
While a Democrat or a Republican is definitely going to win in 2024, there is another man that has been making some noise and has made a recent shift that I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused by the entire thing, to be honest, but we'll get into it. So Dr. Cornel West, who of course is an author, a philosopher, an activist, a brilliant individual, a leader for decades, has decided to now leave the Green Party. He was running as a Green Party candidate for president, leave the Green Party, and now run as an independent. And this follows him initially leaving the People's Party, which is a terribly run party, leaving the People's Party to join the Green Party. So he's now out of any party and just simply running as an independent. I'm going to get to a couple of clips from CNN where he's discussing why he decided to do this. I'm also going to play a clip from my interview with him that I did a couple weeks ago that gets into my thoughts on just generally the issue with third-party runs in a first-past-the-post system, which is what the electoral system is currently right now in North America.
Yeah. We
But,
need 1,000 activists
let me-
working on this. What else is new? Two things I'm always hearing seeing in comment sections is why the Greens need to be doing local races and ranked choice ballot access. We should only be working on that. Well, we are working on it. It's just that no one fucking notices because it isn't national news.
Right.
It's a something of a tautology, but it's circular logic. But it's like, okay, well, we want to do all of those things, and when we can, we do. When it's a local state chapter or something like that, like the one in Maine, who did succeed in getting ranked choice ballot in Maine. And we need more people. We need more support and confidence.
Yeah.
And we get that with attention, with
Yeah. With a
national
national spotlight.
attention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do we get national attention?
Yeah. If we're not going to run anybody and just stay out of it.
It's not going to be with winning some mayorships. It's going to be with but here's where even that's not the case. Howie Hawkins was our national candidate, and no one interviewed him, so we didn't get any national attention.
Yeah.
No one wanted us in the media, wanted us to have national attention.
No.
So it's sort of a puzzle. We need to work out, how does one get national attention? I guess a very large action, but it has to be at some kind of junction where the identity politics libs care, but it also but it doesn't, turn off and make us look like assholes to anyone who's a real socialist, or thinking materially. So it seems like there's no right answer, and that's why we're there's a stuckness. There's only so many things we can try at once because of our limited resources, but we just need more help. We need more support. We want to be like a union with due-paying members, and not just. And something to understand is that a national campaign, whether it's independent, unaffiliated, or even in a party, the campaign itself is its own organization. And that organization fundraises for itself. It has its own volunteer base, and it has its own membership of sorts, but not really membership staff. It doesn't have a firm membership. That's the thing about it. A campaign doesn't act democratically. It isn't, Cornel West's rhetoric and purpose is to basically have another movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing with the joke on Facebook that, America is known for many movements. It just turns out they're bowel movements.
Yeah.
And although such things are necessary but they only create shit everywhere, and they all should be done in the privacy of your own home. Anyway,
carrying it all the way through.
We have plenty of movements. We don't have a lot of power. Yeah. Movements do not build power.
They don't end up.
And I think that's something that kind of drives me nuts when any activist talks about we need a movement. We've had movements. We've had 2 movements in a decade. Mm-hmm. And they created jack and shit as far as any power, organization, or institution, because that is anathema to how people think or act in their daily lives. Their material conditions conduce us to compete for attention rather than actually work together. There are questions of where you draw the line of who you work with, because, the people who are progressives will say they need to buck up and work with us and go where we are and settle for this or work for these policies. We agree 90% of the time, they yell.
Yeah. Oh, that's Cenk Uygur right there. Yeah.
But we really don't actually, because you can say we agree on policies for reforming capitalism, but we want to move beyond capitalism.
Right.
There's completely different goals. And if you want power just so you're managing the poor because you're going to be nicer about it, and then you're going to get upset and reactionary when the poor say, "No, thank you. I don't want your help."
Yeah.
Go fuck off. Yeah. Where was I going with this? Well, let's continue.
Sure.
We'll rant more.
He start with his announcement. So he writes here on Twitter, people are hungry for change. They want good policies over partisan politics. We need to break the grip of the duopoly and give power to the people. I'm running as an independent candidate for president of the United States to end the iron grip of the ruling class and ensure true democracy. Join us. And he links to his page there. So,
true democracy.
Before I get to his clips from CNN,
from a Marxist point of view, all of our democracy is a bourgeois state democracy. It's democracy among capitalists or would-be capitalists.
It's choose your own ruler. Yeah.
And come on, what does true democracy mean in this case? Obviously, it's vagaries. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm mad about. What I'm mad about is there are lots of comments saying that this, despite working with Green Party people like Stein, he also had Nader in his ear, suggesting that he would be better off running independent. Because that's worked so well for Nader's profile. In the
Yeah,
national
did that work for
spotlight.
Nader? I don't think so.
I made that quip, and somebody was like, and the person who did the post was like, smarting me back. Of course, I was sarcastic, so I guess I should, accept. That's why I accepted the meanness,
Right.
though I didn't want it. But what did they say? Well, they basically said and the Cornel West has actually said this in a longer interview with Sabrina Sabi, that like he actually did the thing that other critics of the Greens say, which is, yeah, you're longer lived, but you haven't done anything. You still don't have a mass base. As if there's some other entity in America that has a mass base.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our problem is is everyone's problem. It's the fact that we don't have a left.
Right.
So don't say we're not the left. Yeah, we want to build one.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to if you guys complain that there's no left. Like, oh, I can't join you. You're not a left yet, a real left yet. You're not a mass base. I'm like, well, there's no mass base except for TikTok likes. That's the only mass base I'm ever seeing. Videos liked by 2 million people.
Right.
So get out of there with that rhetoric to me. Because you got to start somewhere, and these egotists. I don't know if I want to call it West one, but I mean it comes off like that. It's a lot of activists act like this. The whole it starts with me, not with an org, not with a group, but me, what I'm doing. And he thinks like he's building a movement around him. So there are people who are Cornel West supporters, and whoever he's doing, they feel like they have an obligation to go where he's going. and that rhetoric comes up with the reactions to this. How does the Green Party help Cornel West? It's not that Cornel West was helping us. It was all about what we offer to a potential candidate.
Right. Yeah.
And that is capitalist brain rot to me. How can any progressive talk like that? They're nothing but market actors at that point, self-commodifying. What can you do? What's in it for me?
Well, there was plenty in it for him, but
what's in it for us?
Yeah.
By us. And there's no us without us. And the us that Cornel refers to is him and followers.
Yeah.
What movement? Right. What organization is he building? He's done a media campaign for 3 months. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into why I'm upset at the implication that over the next year he's going to be building some kind of organization.
Yeah.
That at best will be our Revolution 2.0.
Yeah, it's just going to be some from scratch, shoddy, slapped together,
or something we already have. We already have our revolution. Uh-huh. We already have Justice Democrats.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be those two things, but not involved with the Democrats.
Right.
Well, I don't even know what that would be like, but a non-political party, a non-union organization. Now, in the minds of others, though, all political campaigns should be like, don't do them until we have enough labor power that the labor unions would then be the mass base for a party. A new one, of course. It can't be an existing one. It can't be all these new unions endorsing Greens or something like that. It's not like we haven't built up infrastructure of experts who know what they're doing when it comes to electioneering. Right. But you got to have all these union organizers start wanting to do electioneering, and they're going to fall on their face for another freaking 8 years. Like the People's Party. They fall on their face because they don't actually know electioneering. It's hilarious. Sad. Yeah, so I'm going off on a bunch of tangents, but
no problem at all.
Discussion does have a lot of different areas to kind of grow understanding.
Absolutely.
Easy way for me to summarize my thoughts on third parties and the Green Party generally and a presidential run through a third party, as opposed to reiterating all of this. So this is part of my discussion with Cornel West. It was a 20-minute interview that I put up a couple weeks ago. So I'll link to that full thing below. But here is a clip where I discuss the issues with running as a third-party candidate, the reality of the situation with the electoral politics, and as you even admit the limitations there.
That's right.
And the reason you voted for Biden in 2020 is because you voted against Trump. It wasn't really for Biden. It was against. Yeah, it was an anti-Trump vote, which is just the nature of first past the post and how things currently have to operate based on the way the system currently is. Do you think that maybe the Green Party should invest more in local races, state races, as a way to build up the party and try and create some energy?
Invest
around,
what?
At a state level.
With what? We don't take corporate donations. What? He's acting like we got this trust of money to work with. God. As if we don't have just enough money to... I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, as if the only reason worth running is if you have a good chance of winning. There's no other reason to run for president. You can't build, and it has to be the short-term game always. It can never be the long-term build-up.
Or that with a national campaign, you fundraise a few $1 million, and then you can fund 10,000 local races. We do fund local races, by the way.
Right.
It's just $20,000 though. It's not a lot of money. They have to be, the committee has to be picky about who they choose. There's only so many who apply. Right. You have to write basically a little an entrance essay to make your case. But really, I mean, it's just a basic standard of, can you write out how you're going to use the? Are you not just going to use it on a party? Pizza party, I mean, like a party that doesn't have a political purpose is what I do. They don't want it going to waste. They want it to go to a real a campaign. So you kind of already have to have a campaign before you ask for money. Just like how you have to kind of be somewhat successful before you get any actual success, or you have to act like you're successful. But that's what it feels like West does when he's on the media trail. Is he's acting like he's this big movement leader. But he has always been a participant in movements. He's never done any real organizing or whatever. He's always just been one of the crowd. It's kind of interesting in that way.
Right. Yeah.
And someone who has been an organizer like Howie, well, he doesn't have the charisma. He isn't someone who sticks out.
I think he had the charisma. He just never had the media chance.
Well, it's weird because there's what we see, and then there's what, like Kyle Kalinske said, he has the charisma of a wet banana.
That's ridiculous. He was a very powerful speaker.
But he's a dick, so...
yeah, well...
Not career... No, okay, whatever. Let's keep going.
I know, yeah.
But at the local level... I ran about this already.
As opposed to just going... full throttle for the top of the ticket every 4 years. Because if there's going to be a successful Green Party national party,
right,
you need to have the foundation there. And even just let's say you even get 5% of the vote, federal matching funds. That doesn't mean a whole lot. That's about $10 million. That's not going to win a campaign. You saw the Reform Party hit that, 92, 96. Then Pat Buchanan got less than 1% of the vote, and that was with federal match. He had the $12 million from federal matching funds. Went from 8% that party did to less than 1% of the vote. So that money didn't help him. There really has to be a foundation for the party, I think, for it to.
That's such a weird comparison, by the way. That's a weird historical comparison. What was happening in the 90s, because those were the successful independent runs, Perot. But again, Perot was an independent campaign. He got a lot of votes, but it was just him. There was no organization. There was nothing to last. Right. There wasn't an actual organization being built there. It was just him.
And also, Buchanan's followers pretty much just kind of died out. I mean, literally. Yeah, literally. They were very old in terms of demographic. And so,
but the demographic that supported, but represented the Reform Party as a thing at all. But again, that wasn't building them. They didn't use the $10 million. Again, I guess you use the $10 million in your next presidential campaign. But I can tell you, leftist activists can do a lot more with $10 million. We know how to make things
absolutely.
I'm sure Pat Buchanan in '96 just used it on TV ads.
Sure.
I think we'd use it on paying canvassers.
Right.
That 10 million can pay for a lot of fucking canvassers.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so,
You know,
and a
it'd
lot
still
of
be 10
staff
million. We didn't
and a
know.
lot of organizers and those and it would be interesting actually that let's say we run a really good 5%. Again, I don't really consign this argument to be a main argument anymore. More people make it. But yes, it isn't like, yes, we need the mass base and and membership first before we're going to get that 5%. So I kind of agree with not going with that argument first. It's something to point out that there's a reason that we don't have to get 30% to make any headway, but to say we could get creative, and when we run a presidential campaign next time, we don't spend that 10 million on actual presidential campaigning. We spend it on union organizing. We spend
There you
it
go.
on all these other things. We might get busted by the FEC. I don't know if you
Who
kind
knows?
of campaign spending is kind of controlled if it's for a campaign, but if you're, I don't know, if we spend it on canvassers and say that they're out there canvassing for the candidate when really they're canvassing based on some local chapter's issues.
Mhm.
To recruit people for a local chapter. Because when you're canvassing, you really only have enough time or energy or the patience of the person at the door to really kind of talk about one thing.
Yeah.
I muddled with this when I ran for office. It's like I'm running for mayor, and I should say that, open with that, but I'm really here to let people know the Green Party exists and what we're about and invite them to be a member. Those are two different asks. You only have
Yeah, I don't see
space
why you can't do
for
both, though.
one
Yeah.
ask. But I don't know. It depends on what kind of conversation they're willing to engage with. Sometimes they'll only give you a minute, and you have to make an elevator pitch.
Right.
And so they make a pitch for the party rather than you as a candidate. But I don't know. It's something to experiment with, I suppose. I need to do
Definitely.
more canvassing, but it's not something I'm really in the mood for. That's why the radio, the mass
Canvassing stuff.
mass base building requires mass media of our own. And I can tell you, YouTube videos, TikToks even. Well, I guess now TikToks are definitely in the masses' hands. People of all, even the destitute, or watching TikToks.
That's true. That's
It
true.
seems a lot of lowbrow culture there. If I'm going to be classist about it. Let's keep going. I just wanted to touch on the party building aspect of. Again, like a presidential campaign is its own organization. It's not the party's organization. It's not created. And something that I'll probably mention now rather than later is when people use the rhetoric or the wording of West has left the Green Party or X person has left. Well, technically they never joined.
Well, yeah, and they were never the official candidate for the party. So
besides,
the
even
presumed
if
candidate.
our first and primary requirement for being our nominated candidate is joining, and I just mean registering, changing your voter affiliation. It takes 2 minutes, but it's a commitment that you're at least going to be an affiliated Green on paper for at least a year. But some people, that's just too much of an ask. That's just taking away their frickin' liberal liberty, their ability to choose, because that's the most powerful right of all, the ability to choose, right? Non-affiliation, or
It's the only freedom worth fighting in this country.
It's the one that's truly American,
right? Freedom of choice.
We got to grapple with how un-American I feel all the time. But this is where we think about moving to Europe.
Or Canada.
No, Canada's very pseudo-American with a lot of its attitudes.
At least they have viable third parties to a certain extent.
The Greens have only ever won 2 seats, and they've been.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're monumentally better, successful. or more successful than here, but at least they have a presence, you know.
Yes. But you could say that, well, I mean, they're having the same struggle, and because they have a bit more success, that the battle lines are a little more, even more stark because there are more members, and that's something you have to deal with when there's this talk of mass base building, but they seem to forget that involves actually a lot of people with a lot of diversity there, and I don't know if I have a feeling that it's like when people talk about organizing, they're kind of just thinking everybody's going to be like them, or of some kind of mindset or subculture. Obviously, that's not the case when you're working at Amazon, when you're union organizing. There's a very powerful link between people, the workplace, and maybe, but there really, I don't know if not really with place, because people are moving around all the time. So it's not like anyone has real loyalty to a place. So you can organize, oh, well, we're all Minneapolis people here, right? You know, Portland strong. But, Yeah.
All right. Well, let's continue.
Party to be able to build and be competitive. What are your thoughts on that?
Is this a reflection of your running for the Green Party there in Canada?
Oh, 1 second. Have to acknowledge that raid. Thank you, Bread Crochets, for the raid. Everyone go check out Bread Crochets. I'll shout you out right now. Very cool channel. They listen to theory while doing crochet projects, which are always really cool.
Sounds like a spinoff with the bread.
Yeah. Well, you know, to be fair, Bread Crochets, I believe, started before I did.
Okay.
But yeah, very cool. Bread.
What are you listening to now, Bread Crochets? Since you're in the chat.
Minecraft. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I saw you were doing that last time. I checked in with your channel. All right, Bread Crochets. Hopefully I spelled that right. I was in trouble. Yeah, I think I got it. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for the raid. Really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video. We are checking out Cornel West has left his affiliation with the Green Party. He's no longer affiliating himself.
He's not going to run for president
as a Green.
As a Green.
He's not going to seek their nomination. So we're checking that out right now.
In Canada, it's different because it's a parliamentary system. So it really depends on what riding you're in. But since I ran, this is back in 2015, I've had sort of a different, back then I thought, hey, if we get some percent of the vote now, we'll get more next time, we'll get more next time, and we'll grow it that way. I've come to learn that's not really how it works, right? It's all about where the investment is, what riding, or in American terms, what district the investment is in. If there is enough of an investment from the party into certain areas, you can definitely win some seats. The Green Party, I think, has 2 seats right now, but they've hovered around there for a while. He's
right about
really
that,
tough
by the way. So I'll agree with that. It isn't always cumulative. The number of votes that you get one cycle or one race does not carry into the next, unless you invest the same amount of resources checking in on them and letting you know, yes, you're the same candidate. I would like your vote again. You have to ask them. You can't take it for granted.
Fair enough.
And that goes for even the most stalwart machine will still have ground game, and that's why they talk about it all the time.
I mean, it's a big reason that Hillary lost Wisconsin.
Yeah. They took
a
lot of votes for granted. They took voters for granted, right? Just because they're likely and frequent Democrat voters doesn't mean they still need.
Doesn't mean they're going to show up. Yeah,
they still need to be asked to vote for you. Yeah. Not just a reason, but just asked to show up.
Exactly.
Even tougher, I think, in the American system for third parties because it is not a parliamentary system. All right, so I'm going to get to Cornel West on CNN.
So,
so he's right about the need for investment, right? We can win in more areas if we can invest there. We need resources to do that. Then we can make all those goddamn. I mean, we do this in our own, just in the county level. We can argue for hours, not argue, but just discuss the options we have before us. We can come up with 10 good options for where we would put our, let's say it's $5,000. Let's say we fundraised $5,000. And that's enough for a really good, strong race. We would get, 50% more. Where do we put this? What neighborhood, what municipality, Where would it go the most? Where, we look at where the most progressive voters are.
Hmm.
Is it worth challenging the DSA Democrat there in Albany, or is it worth going to one of the suburbs and going to town, door knocking the schmoes out there?
Hmm.
Um, it's there's a bunch of options, and it's just really we're kind of sometimes paralyzed with what to do if we were to focus on any place, because our membership is also scattered. One person's
Yeah.
in one municipality, one person's in another,
Right.
and they're like, well, here's the you could help me. Well, help me, and so I guess we could make it like use a random number generator just to pick, and make it more of a chance kind of thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to do like a lot of research to figure out where you should put your money.
Which
Just
takes time and money too.
just like
So,
how
yeah.
capitalists do, but they have
Yeah, yeah.
money to burn.
Right.
Or like a institution has an IR department, and institutional research, and that's my job at work, and we're a team of like 10 people. The green, a good organization will have the same thing,
Absolutely.
and we just don't have. But I mean, full timers doing that, and we just don't. Democratic Party does. They've. I mean, a lot of organizations do. They've all got offices in DC, and that's because they've got millionaires putting in money, pumping in money. Thanks, Al.
Yep. And Greens just by our configuration cannot go that route because we don't take big corporate donations. So
Right.
we're
But
never
with
going to have that
mass,
kind of a war chest.
but yes, it becomes sort of again another contradiction we have to power through,
Uh-huh.
or resolve, is that it will take a mass base of members paying dues, even if they're just
Yeah.
$2,
Yeah.
to fund salaries, and
Right on.
but there's a mix of, well, it's like, okay, well, we do that. We need those organizers to build the mass base. Well, you need the mass base to fund the organizers. And there's also a resistance to having organizers, to having a central org that does things that you fund. It's anti-politics. To want. I mean, it's people do not actually want to do politics because
Yeah.
you are then investing power, you're investing responsibility with a group of people that you're going to pay, and with power, with responsibility comes power. Even if those people are directly accountable to those paying the dues, but you can see in unions, you get union bureaucracy, and in the same way, there is a rejection of any kind of organizational bureaucracy that could ever happen. And so what you're left with is you have activists or leftists or left-leaning people who want to do things. They needed to have organizations to do things, so they became nonprofits, and then they're either funded by the state or other donors or a mix of all those things. They're fully ensconced in the capitalist order. At least you can provide sometimes direct services.
Mm-hmm.
But to clients, not to a base, and then you're locked out of being political and all that. So, and you're not independent.
Yep, that is a dilemma. Mm-hmm.
Discussing why he decided to run as an independent now and leave the Green Party. But before I get there, just quickly here. So those are my thoughts on third party runs in a general election. The issue really is first past the post, which essentially means that the party with the most votes wins, regardless of how many votes those are. So you can win an election with 40% of the vote, even though most people did not vote for you. You still win that election because that 40% is more than anyone else got, which leads, even in a parliamentary system like in Canada, often leads to a two-party system because most people want to vote against the party that they don't want in power. So you end up having two parties essentially get a lot of the power there. And it disrupts people's ability.
Or you have to, because your opponent will get 40%, and your and the other two choices, organizations, would get 30% and 30%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you need coalitions to beat the 40% block,
Right.
you know, and instead of
Right. So yeah, at least in a parliamentary
ranked choice
system, there
path,
is
yeah.
some
But it's
of
still
that goes on. But
you get through, you know, 3 different organizations like with the NDP and whatever, but it's still first past the post. So he
Yeah.
is right also about that, because that's Canada's main issue.
right. Yeah, and definitely proportional representation would be much
Yeah.
better
And that
overall.
goes
But
and that goes beyond it, because of ranked choice ballots, you
cool.
can still have a lot of electioneering wrangling. You
exactly.
still have blocks.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't really solve a lot of those issues. It will adapt, you know, it will be adapted to.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about the Greens having to get behind a you know, a snowball's chance in hell, sort of a campaign trying to get anything that would require, I don't know, maybe a constitutional convention even, to
Yeah.
change.
Most
That's
and
even
mo-
less likely to happen.
and I've ran about this before. Progressives are against changing constitutions, or even
Yeah.
they don't want to risk conventions or votes that they might lose by not organizing enough.
hmm
So it's, you know, weakness begets more weakness.
Right.
and then you don't even take a chance, or you don't even gamble a little bit. I guess it's, you know, you shouldn't take a risk you shouldn't be prepared to take, but you can be guaranteed to get something.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just frustrating when people who live in a state say with a referendum process are like, you should just focus on referendum processes. Like, what about the states that don't? You know, we have to fight for a referendum process. I mean, it's
Yeah, so you just have to build in.
things get real pessimistic real fast, and of
Mhm.
course, we don't want to be that way. We want to be optimistic socialists, or act out of optimism.
And I think,
And
referendum might be an interesting way for a state or local Green Party to get more attention and
well, Jill
actually
Stein,
have something
yeah, get attention and get attention.
have something to rally around and build up support.
Well, this was done in Massachusetts. This is how Jill Stein became one of
Mhm.
our, you know, better organizers, I guess. She was part of an organizing process for a referendum in Massachusetts. They
Hmm.
won it, and then the legislator didn't enact it. So it didn't matter, because you can organize to get reforms, but you didn't win power.
Right.
You know, this is where, you know, you were a good activist, but you didn't win any power. You know, you can pass pot legalization, but oh, look at that. Now corporations will run everything. It turns out you just played yourself, you know, in a way. And you're destroying the gray economy of your local drug dealer, who now can't compete with the shiny, clean store that everyone's going to be buying their pot from. I think there was this case where like all the drug dealers were basically using, I mean, by that I mean weed dealers in particular,
Right.
were all using like one house,
Oh.
and they're all just sharing that as a meeting spot.
Huh.
Since it's not illegal, they don't really need to hide that much, but they're not using a permit, so like, you know, it's
Yeah.
a little discount. It's got to be cheap. It's got to at least be cheaper than what you would have to pay at the
When you get from
store.
the dispensary, yeah.
Because so many people in my area are going over the Berkshires to buy pot in Great Barrington and Springfield.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, let's
Berkshires are the mountains between New York and Massachusetts, by the way.
I remember. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was the what was it? The James, what's his name? I don't know.
Anyway, there's a lot of hippies in the Berkshires, lots of progressive stuff there.
Sure.
To vote for who they actually want to vote for, which is why ranked choice voting, which Cornel West brings up in that interview as well, is important. Proportional representation, there has to be a complete shift towards a different electoral system that actually respects the voter. Until that happens, any sort of run like this is just, I think, a waste of time. There has to be a foundation of a party. If you want to have a run like this, there has to be local race, like state races. There has to be a real investment into growing a party from the ground up. You're not going to grow it from the top down. Now, let me get to Cornel West and his decision here on why he decided to leave the Green Party.
The Green Party is a progressive party, and I was so glad that Sister Jill Stein and my dear brother Jamu Baraka came in and allowed me to become a part of that process. But I discovered that, lo and behold, even there are certain impediments. And you see, Sister Caitlin, I really am a jazz man in the life of the mind in the world of politics, which means that it's difficult to play in the party band. It's difficult to have to deal with those constraints
What do you
and
mean
all.
impediments?
The impediments having to do with first, there's a long nomination process. You got a number of different.
Oh, you mean you can't just show up and they'll be like, yeah, you're our guy, let's do it? Democracy in our own party be damned. Wow. What an impediment.
And this is like he would be the presumed nominee. Like I would.
Yeah, he probably
be
would be the nominee.
I would
almost certainly.
I would be very comfortable, and he should be comfortable calling himself the presumed nominee. Now, obviously, he shouldn't actually say that, but
Yeah.
we in our statements, we
Sure.
don't do that, right? We don't do it until we actually have our vote.
Right.
Which, yes, it is in the middle of the summer of the election season, right? It is very late, but he can. I don't know. I don't think we would be raising too much of a fuss if he said, I'm the presumed Green Party nominee. Because Jill Stein did
No,
so.
I don't think so.
She was
Yeah.
our presumed nominee. Not
Yeah.
in name, I guess, but she was running a campaign for 2 years before 2016. And
Mhm.
so it was like she was our candidate the whole time. The
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
process is just a formality, at that point. And yeah, it does feel kind of it doesn't feel doesn't feel good. It's a little cringy to know that like our election is settled a year before we are deciding who our nominee is. Because it's like the money that she's raised and the organizing she's already done and the fact that she was our nominee before,
Mhm.
and she was our candidate in 2012,
Right.
kind of anoints her / makes her the winner before the 2016 race even starts. But she didn't really have serious competition, If there's serious competition, then yeah, you shouldn't say you're the presumed nominee. And I don't think there would be serious competition to court him now. Nobody is talking, in my circles anyway, talking about running. And any rumor or rhetoric aside that it does happen from these freaking pundits, these progressive pundits, to suggest otherwise is insanity. It's just not true. Howie is not in any shape to run. He doesn't have the team. Some of his teammates died. The team that he had before 2020. They're not with us anymore. He doesn't have the same people to help him. So he, like Jill, wanted to help Cornell, or he was looking to.
Yeah.
Hey, can I get in on this action? Not because I'm an egotistical coattails,
Right.
writing
No, because
writer.
he had the experience.
Because I want, same with Jill. She was his intern, so it's not mentioned because it's details that don't matter too much, but it does if you want to understand. Stein was his interim campaign manager.
Right.
So for the last few months until Peter Dow was hired. And Stein will explain in the interview that you should be or will link to just for reference. She explains that when she was brought in as the interim campaign manager, just to get things going, just to teach Cornell what you need to have a campaign and to run one, she was imploring him to hire a campaign manager because apparently at the beginning he didn't think he needed one, and or didn't understand why he needed one. And true. When anyone's just totally like new, why things are done the way they are done should be explained, especially if the way things are done from the outside looks like total bullshit, right? But you do need somebody coordinating activities. So she suggested Peter Dow. And it took Cornell the whole summer to come around to the idea, or as she suggests, because she wasn't in his head, or the process of elimination of figuring out that there's just nobody better than Peter Dow. Someone who has not run it, but been part of National Democratic Party campaigns, but has burned the bridges there, so he doesn't have that. He's out of the industry now, so he is a free agent. He can work for us and wants to, and thus he was hired and would be hired. But it took a whole summer for Cornell to do this. And it's weird that as soon as he does hire Peter Dow, now 2 weeks on in that, he decides or the team decides we're going to run independent, because there's one more state. Like if you compare the states where Greens have ballot access now, but the number of states where it takes more ballot signatures to get a established party as a ballot line versus an unaffiliated candidate. I guess compare those. I guess maybe in the independent side, there's one more state where it would be easier. I don't know if that's the calculus they're doing. But it's so fucking what he really did not know what it takes to run a campaign. He really it seemed like him doing media appearances was building a movement.
Yeah, he thought that was going to be enough.
I don't know if that's what we really believe, but it seemed to be acting like it.
Yeah.
And I'll lay out now our requirements, our onerous impediments to being our nominee. To me, the only one I understand is having to wait till summer, right? Because we have our meeting in July, and sometimes we talk about pumping it up to so it's like in June or early July. But again, we don't want it on the 4th. We want to do it between July and August, because that's when people can do their vacations. Because guess what? We actually are working people who can't take a full week off whenever we freaking want. Because I was able to go to the 2016 convention because I had vacation days, or at least I could take days off for about a week in late July, but I wouldn't have been able to do it early July. So, and doing it in the spring or whatever, like the Democratic primaries, again, people complain about these primaries being so early in the year, and that's starting to actually get some pushback where now they're starting more in March. Not January or whatever. So, but anyway, besides the wait, we require to be actually registered as a Green. You don't have to pay dues even. Of course, he could afford it, but he could be paying dues now. He doesn't have to be a registered, but you do not have to be a registered Green to pay dues and be a member of the Green Party. That's just the word I'm using, but a dues-paying member. And that matters a lot more to us than being registered, by the way, because that allows us to actually, run candidates or whatever.
Yeah. Do organizing. Yeah.
Do organizing. So there's that. There's just like when you're running for any office.
Yeah.
In the petitioning process on the state level, you need to petition within the Green Party. But our numbers, we require you to basically get 10 signatures in each state. It's not like we're asking for something that takes more than a day or so.
All right.
And I don't think they have to be literal signatures. And they don't have to be literal signatures. They just have to be like an email from an account, from someone, from a name that we can check the name, verify their registration as a Green.
Yeah.
And an email saying I endorse this person to run in our party. It's amazingly simple and easy. And this was mostly in 2020, you had people complaining about how Howie was now the anointed candidate and it's rigged for Howie. And for this, they're kind of like the opposition in a country where like they sit out the election to protest it. They're like, we're protesting this rigged primary for Howie by not doing any of the requirements and then acting like we're entitled to the debate stage or to chair stage with Howie because we just say that we're entitled to it because we have a right. Yeah. And this goes for the person who is like a stand-in for Ventura or kind of Ventura himself. and I only mentioned Ventura more because, and if we cover the next clip, which I think we should, with Kyle Kalinske, he mentions Ventura as like we should have nominated him in 2020, and it's like he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, man. He wasn't watching Ventura when he was gearing up to be like to run as for our nomination. The guy was constantly haranguing about how he just is not in a financial position to run for anything. His wife has cancer and the insurance bills are killing him. Apparently, he's not making a lot of money with his podcast, or he's blowing it on something. I don't know his personal life, okay? But he came like he was his when he appeared or he was talking, he was just anti-charisma. He was a black hole of energy.
Oh man,
I was like, sucks. I don't want this guy being our candidate, even if he does have a fan base. But that's all they are, fans. They're not people showing up.
Yeah.
Some of them did.
Not committed voters.
Some of them did in our party, but they basically just came to troll and say Ventura should be the candidate. Ventura should be the candidate. And then sometimes they were putting on masks and pretending they weren't Ventura people. And then, but they were just, I'm relating. They were just saying, "Oh, it's rigged for Howie. It's rigged for Howie." Such annoying little brats. And like, and they weren't committed Greens. They weren't like they didn't care about our.
No, they just wanted their guy to get more clout.
And it's interesting. And one of our values is having democracy. So like, it's interesting. It's interesting that the Party for Socialists and Liberation, Peace and Liberation, or whether it's
Party
PSL,
for Socialism and Liberation,
they have their candidate named Victoria. They can just name their candidate. They just name them. They don't have a process. I don't know if a committee picks them. I don't know how they do it. Because they don't say. Same thing with Socialist Party. When Mimi was their candidate, I don't know who. Was it just a committee or was it just that he stepped up and said, I'll do this? Will you let me do this and say I'm a candidate?
Okay, sure.
It's sad, but it's also like, well, I guess they can have their feet running and say, we have a candidate and we can't say that until August because we have a process. And you can think of it as bureaucratic, but I just think of it as we have democracy and all these other fakers don't.
Yeah, Democratic Party with their super delegate bullshit. They
don't elect their boards. They don't elect their executive directors. Like at least we have. I mean, it is more of a step up, step back position, but we do elect our chairs. We do elect our steering committee.
Sure.
And there can be elections, and then sometimes there is competition. In 2016, it seemed like there was a little bit because it was a choice about whether we were a post-capitalist party that can have multi-tendency leftists in it, or are we still a party that pretends that we can have a bunch of progressives who are just Dems that got kicked out or burned too many bridges, or they're a little too anti-imperialist to be Democrats, but they're also not socialists. And that was one of the things where Stein will talk about how I could put up with the politics of the Green Party that I'm a member of. I can put up with the need to talk and convince Greens that you should be the candidate, because in her case, she didn't have to make too much of a case. Just to me and my friend, I've mentioned this before, I think, but I'll mention again for this context. We asked her, like, why don't you use the S word? Bernie Sanders, and this is 2016. Bernie Sanders is making a lot of waves because he's able to use the S word and find out, or at least show that people under 35, half of them don't like capitalism. We're not for it anymore.
It's not working for us the way it has for older generations.
And she said the usual kind of boomer thing that like the S word, socialist, turns too many off. It conjures bad images. It's a ruined, it's a ruined brand. It's a dead and toxic branding. Kind of, which is ironic considering all the commentators who say the Greens are a toxic or damaged brand that can never be compete with the hypothetical Labor Party that we're going to build in 20 years. But the thing that strikes me is the point that the real Marxists will point out when you look at the raw numbers, that yes, labor militancy is higher than it was 15, 20 years ago, but union membership has never been lower. It is still declining. The wins are wins for labor militancy, and maybe labor militancy will grow union membership. But on the other hand, in the union I'm in, there's no public sector union, so we're not really allowed to be militant. It literally is a crime to actually demand something more than what we can negotiate. But when it comes to ground game and rank and file organizing, it's dead. It's sad, and I've ran about this in other streams of ours, which I attempted to do for 3 months and be a union officer, and I got to see just how pathetic it is and they have money to spend, but the law, and this is so you can be again, a union is also not really allowed to be political. It can have political charge, and you can use the rhetoric that everything's political, but no, you're still just negotiating within the scope of a workplace. So you're really not that independent. You can't spend money as you like. It's it can't really be spent on that many organizer salaries. It was still volunteerist. And volunteerism is exactly what Cornel West is pitching for. More volunteerism.
Yeah.
It should be a dead strategy to us, to anything that smacks of volunteerism. But it's all we have to work with until we have
the budget to
until we have a real budget. We have to convince people one at a time the necessity of accepting a little bureaucracy. Just a little bit.
A little democracy.
It can be, and it can't be, and it will be different and better than what it was that our grandparents were rebelling against. Right. Because now we have tech, we have Lumio, we have tools for direct democracy, we have the concepts of consensus, and circles and hippie stuff, and we can make a hippie-like bureaucracy that isn't Tech Valley, okay? Tech Valley is not, that's still a corporate bureaucracy. Horizontalist democracy, where there is more elections of the people that, or coordinating things. I'm only projecting the vision here. And I'm not sure sometimes I want it, but in the org I'm working with, we're only able to do anything if there's some kind of hand-holding of I think that so the radio station has been in limbo because the board and the people who own things and run it, they're legally responsible, but they've wanted to be hands-off, right? Like a good volunteerist leftist. Hands-off. Let people just do things ad hoc, be free, horizontalist. But that has led to one disaster after another.
Yeah.
Because what you get is a contradiction between the doers who are doing things,
right,
and the legally responsible, the people who are getting the funding, at least for the paying the bills, and they want to be hands off, but then they want the doers to follow some comporum of, well, you have to at least tell us what you're doing and check with us to see if it comports with the law or our donors or how we're set up as a nonprofit.
Right.
And the doers are like, no, fuck off. You've been hands off. No, don't tell me what to do. You have no right.
Yeah.
They have to exert that right. And I've only made a little progress by having the board take on financial responsibilities. Right? If this station's going to have underwriters, they're going to come for you. It's not going to be producers collecting money and trying to get it to you or whatever. No, You're going to do it. You're going to make sure the bills are paid. You're going to make sure that we're going to make sure the money goes to you. And then you're the ones who are seeking underwriting and donors and whatever. You're the ones that are going to handle it. You got to you're responsible. And then you can have power and say, we just want the station to be clean all the time. And so I'll be confident when I tell producers, volunteers, just be clean all the time, even if it's after 10 p.m. I know you want that slot, and you can have that slot, but it's not so you can say shit and fuck this.
Yeah.
Or play, at least sexually, implicit music.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
Yeah. It's coming up.
But we got to the main problem here of Cornell saying, look, I'm a jazz man and I don't want to be no orchestra, even if it is a jazz orchestra. Orchestra can have soloists, right? It has a first chair. It has a conductor. But these are impediments to my freedom. The conductor's telling me when to slow down. I have to play with 5 other people. It's, God damn it. It's just... Yeah. It's a good metaphor, music, a chorus. And and the thing about a chorus is someone was saying, like, I sung in a chorus. I wasn't that good. And so I sang in the back.
Yeah.
It means you can accommodate different skill levels and everyone doesn't have to be a goddamn master baiter.
Yeah, right. There's roles for all sorts. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the idea that he has to only go his own way and he only wants a sure thing, that's just not reasonable. So he can go out on his own then, and he can find out just how hard it is to
get those ballot lines,
to be doing everything.
Have a ground game. But see, the assumption is he'll have such a fan base, and the leftists and maybe the leftovers of the Bernie campaign will step up again. But guess what? I think all those people who are like, Bernie burners, they're done with electoralism. They're all union organizing or doing nonprofit work of some
right. Yeah.
They want to build a mass base that way by helping people. But I'm not arguing with them. I don't care to. It's not. I don't have the energy to it for it. Not to argue with people I want to be friends with. Yeah. But to point out, like, you can join these organizations, but you're still limited by being, in being political.
Sure.
You can build this mass base of tenant unions, but if you as organizers can't endorse a candidate, maybe you can leave it up to them. But we're still going to be stuck with Democrats, and the Democrats are the ones showing up to the union, the tenant organizing stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of them are. And they're glad handing, and hopefully they see through that. But I don't know, you just
never know.
You're comfortable with them, you're comfortable.
A lot of people make a big deal every time Biden shows up to some union action, even though he's suppressed other union.
His 20 minutes to the picket. The first president to ever visit a picket.
First president ever. Oh my God.
After Obama broke his promise saying he would do that.
Anyway. But we really should continue because we got about an hour left and we'll made it through half the video.
Appearances you have to make your case, and I understand that democratic process. But when it becomes so internal that I don't have time to focus on the pain and the social misery of the people.
All right, so there's one more clip coming up about him discussing, why he thinks running as an independent is better. But on these points here, I get what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. To me, it sounds like he doesn't enjoy his life being controlled by the Green Party schedule. So the Green Party has, certain things you have to show up to be able to, hit the nomination, certain things I'm sure you have to do. And I totally get that he doesn't like his life being controlled by that. So he's not running as a Green Party candidate anymore. I totally get that. What I don't get is wanting to continue to run for president after you realize these sorts of schedules are not for you. Because at this point, you can no longer use the argument of, hitting 5% to hit federal matching funds because you're not in a party. You're running as an independent. That's a lot of the defense I was seeing for people in support of Cornel West as the Green Party candidate initially, is that, obviously he's not going to win, but if you hit that 5%, then you get federal matching funds, which, as I said,
they're just using a standard Green Party talking point, which is distributed quite widely. I wish it wasn't the one people remember, but because it should just be we want to build a party.
Want to build the party up. Yeah.
We want to build a party up. It doesn't, even if we're not getting matching funds, we want to bring people. The campaign is to
more national attention,
recruit people to the party,
get more excitement,
not just voters.
Yeah, more people on our
members
side ready to help us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we can do all those local shit that you want us to do, or you want to happen, regardless of who does it. You want it to happen, right? Well, do it with us. We're here. What else? Is there some other competition for doing local campaigns that are independent, political, and organized? No, I don't think there is.
That really means a whole lot, but if that's your argument, that argument's gone now. So I don't really know what the point of this run is personally, because again, Cornel West can be on TV whenever he wants. There's an eyelash in my eye right now and it's bothering me. So I don't know why he needs this. Let me get to the next clip, which explains why he thinks running as an independent gives him a better shot.
It's a good question. It complicates your bid for the White House, because if you did run as the Green Party nominee, you're on the ballot in I think 20 or so states. Now you've got to raise a lot of money, have this effort to get your name on the ballots.
Do a lot more of that, taken away from helping people to run a campaign, like all aspects of a campaign, in addition to, going on these shows and building this movement.
I don't know if there's this math where it's like, okay, we added up all the days and the hours that you not just you, the campaign. It's not him doing it. The point is you hire people to do the work. The time spent doing that staff spends doing Green Party stuff and you showing up to certain events, which literally it's like, I guess it can add up because like ideally you at least visit every state party chapter once. We all kind of have our state meeting like in June. So I guess June would be kind of like a lot of zipping around to our state meetings. So I guess like if because time is money. Time is money. Time is voters. So taking even 1 month out, to do that stuff can probably look onerous in the big picture. I
guess, but
get that, but like it's about build. Like he's opened with saying this campaign is to build a united left, and what are we uniting into? How are we uniting? How? That question can never be answered by anyone, even Greens, of course. Like how? Well, I mean, we try answering it by running joint. What is it? Planks, not planks. Sorry. What do you call it when you have multiple candidates? I mean, our vice presidential candidate was from the SP. We wanted a ticket with people from all of the other leftist groups, or at least political parties, right? Can we at least be united that way? Some will not, like some of these groups, like say PSL. They all have their tendencies that go back to the 60s. It's terrible, like how cultish it kind of gets, and that's where you get the walls. Sometimes it's a pseudo-rational reason, like the Greens have progressives and liberals in there, and obviously we don't want to be part of that. Yeah, and it's sort of like the DSA. They have a communist caucus, an actual hard socialist, but they also have their social democrats. Anyway,
which as well as I do, it requires tens of thousands of signatures.
Well, my Green Party brothers and sisters have 18 states, gaining, so we still had 32. And the two-party system, the corporate duopoly, is just so unjust in terms of making it difficult for any independent party. And that shows you the way in which they want to reproduce the status quo. Now, I've got 50, but it's easier as an independent to gain access to the ballot than it is to be part of a third party, you see. And
is it? I'm not sure how that works, but I guess we'll see.
We've got folk on the ground operating.
Well, okay, so when you're let's take New York for example. I don't think that the number doesn't change actually. Okay, so let's take another state, for example. Let's say state X. In order to run, you need to gain a ballot line. Sometimes you already have a ballot line, but let's say to gain a ballot line, you need X number of votes in a previous race. Otherwise, you need this many petitions. Illinois is really tough too. It's bigger. It's the most blue states that actually have the highest petition numbers.
Yeah, funny that, huh?
Real funny how that works. The states with like we only need 6,000 are like the ones like Alabama and Mississippi.
Yeah, like we don't care. You're not doing anything here anyway.
Right, because they know. Especially when you're independent.
Yeah,
again, when independent is not a party label.
Right.
It's unaffiliated candidate, single person. Their campaign is their organization. There's no other organization. There's no machine. There's no other ground game.
Right.
Maybe a campaign can bring in a bunch of other groups, but they all have to be political. You know, they cannot be nonprofits. They can't be the civil society that leftists have built up over the decades, where they're all just fucking nonprofits. They're not allowed to be political.
Right.
They can just individually endorse, or they can also be on the county committee, you know, but in that way they have to be Democratic Party functionaries. At least when it comes to that. Okay.
Let's move on, yeah.
On the ground. I've got an organizational genius in my dear brother Peter Dow and magnificent high quality team, and we're hitting the ground running, and we're going to be in at least 35 or 40 states.
Did you?
I appreciate Dr. West's his enthusiasm, his optimism.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy to think that he'll be on the ballot in more states than the Green Party. No,
this is going to be another Kanye West sort of a deal. Like, how many states was Kanye on?
We could look that up. He was on more than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And it shocked me how many. I think he was on the ballot in many places as Howie was, which is why it was also kind of something cringy to do. But I compared his totals to Howie's, and Missouri was the closest, where he had basically 60% of the vote total that Howie had. And it was like, holy shit, he almost has as many votes as our candidate. That freaking scares the shit out of me.
That's sad. But also, he's a multimillionaire. In fact, I think
yes. That was before his
full billionaire.
That was before he went full. That was before he went the full Nazi.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that was the fallout of that.
But he was still out of it at the time.
Yeah, I'll look that up later then. We'll continue on.
There is a reason why, if you're going to run as a third-party candidate, people run in an actual party as opposed to running as an individual.
At least he understands that.
The barriers are tougher for an independent. You can look through some of the needs here. Independent candidate requiring ballot access. So a lot of signatures. Of course, depends on the state. Money in some cases, but it's not too much money. Considering a run like this. But it's just, if it was easy, you would see more people do it. If it was easy, there would be a lot of people on the ballot every year. And even if you get on the ballot, Ross Perot got 18% in 92, didn't get one electoral vote.
And didn't build an organization. He wasn't part of a party.
What the point of this campaign is.
So yeah.
So I just looked it up.
You can stop it there. We can move on to the third link I put in.
Quickly, West was on 12 state ballots.
12. Only 12. Okay.
Yeah. Sued for access an additional 5. Lost all appeals.
Yeah.
Was also appeared on the California ballot as a part of another party. That's it.
Whose?
That's it. He was with Rocky de la Fuente's running mate. I don't know. American Independent Party.
Yeah.
Far right political party. Yeah, that makes sense.
Rocky La Fuente. That's strange because I guess that's Rocky Anderson I'm thinking of. He's running for something in Salt Lake.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't know.
Rocky Anderson's kind of a progressive guy.
Yeah, this different to you.
Totally.
For sure. So yeah, that's kind of, and that's Kanye, who has way more name recognition than Cornel West, and way more money at his disposal than Cornel West. But I guess we'll see.
12.
12.
So that's why I was able. Okay, so yeah, I was able to compare the voting results in a few of those states. Then 12, and Missouri was one of them. Tennessee has a low threshold, 300 signatures. That's where it should be everywhere, really. But yeah, when it's in New York, it's 75,000, which is it was snuck in during the emergency provisions or during COVID. The Democrats didn't stop it. Como is no longer popular, but they also don't want to do anything now about bringing them down again. It's a sad state of affairs, and it does make it pretty hopeless in this regard of Greens getting on the ballot again in New York. I mean, we can make an effort, but it's just not really going to happen. What was it? We got up to, we needed oh wait, no, it's 45,000, but we got that much, but then they threw out 1,000 of our signatures and said, no, you're not going to get qualified. So we didn't get on the ballot last time we tried, and you need twice as many to be challenge proof. That's why I say 75,000, and it's not fucking easy collecting thousands and thousands of signatures.
Yeah.
Even when it's across the state, you need 1,000 people doing that.
Yeah.
Each one needs to collect 700. I collected 100, and that was actually no, I didn't get that far. Actually, my goal was to get 100. I think I got 50 to 60, and I called it quits because I was not motivated. I was not well motivated. I was just so, because this was last year, 2022, and I was just so unmotivated to kind of keep, because we get the ballot line, and in the same rhetoric as don't run for president without your mass base, it's we shouldn't really try to get the line back without a mass base. And so there is a point there, but again, I'm kind of left with, how do I recruit anyone locally, until we start changing people's material conditions? But we can't change material conditions without organizing. So that's where other socialists have really come to the conclusion that we just need to organize in workplaces or as tenants. That changes people's material conditions. It's not doing it under a political ideology. I mean, it is educating people somewhat. But you can do it with people of any persuasion as long as you're leaning on what their interests are, right? So, and it certainly goes deeper, and it's more lasting than identity-based organizing, which is, well, complicated.
Yep, absolutely.
Not person to fully explain the pitfalls of that, but
yeah.
Let's the last link I put in is a quick one from Kyle, the K's, Crystal and Kyle.
Oh, the car one. Okay, let's look at that.
Do you not want to do it? Or?
No, I definitely do.
We can rage. It's good rage.
Videos and cars.
Yeah, I know. Right, it's a moving car though. They're not parked. They're driving between gigs.
Ditches Green Party.
But on the subject, did you see anything from VidCon? You had streamers like Ian Vosh interviewing Congress people, the squad. Rokana is what
I did not see that part. No.
It was Emma. It was Emma from the Majority Report and Vosh, and apparently Destiny was there, but I didn't really hear his voice that often. Yeah. And they were interviewing a bunch of people half an hour at a time, and they were streaming. The revolution was being live streamed. And God, they were just like they were trying to be like challenging and ask the tough questions, but they really just came off as big Democratic suck ups to me.
Really?
Like
That's unfortunate to see.
we're blue no matter who, and our goal here is to beat Republicans and help, and we want Democrats to win, but it's oh my God, I'm getting flashbacks to 2010, where it was the progressive line, which has not changed an iota, which is it's not that we're anti-democrat or capitalist. It's that we just want to beat Republicans, and we know that the Democrats can only beat them if they're more progressive. That's why we push for these policies, and we want them to to fight for them. We want Democrats with backbones that will fight the Republicans. That's what that's what the Obama years were all about.
Yeah.
And it's sickened me so much because the goals were so unimaginative. Not with the recession the way it was,
it just cannot happen within the Democratic Party. It is bought by corporate interests. Their entire lifeblood is dependent on corporate donors. So they're always going to skew in that direction and never in a progressive one. They're incapable of it structurally. So you can go into that party thinking you're going to change it, but it never ends up happening. You have a few outliers, and maybe they get some cool things passed once in a blue moon, but they never take over the party. They never can.
But then you take a second look and realize it's actually just still a fig leaf. It's not actually cool.
Yeah, it's a very watered down version.
There'll be a workaround within the next term.
Yeah, or they'll just flat out repeal it like Glass-Steagall or all that sort of thing. Whatever.
Yeah.
So
it makes me pretty ratchet, and to know that these leftists, these outwardly socialist commentators, they've raised awareness by educating their viewership, and that's how the live streaming is part of revolutionary practice by raising awareness. But then we're gonna organize them within the Dems. All of them now have careers within that world.
Yeah.
And even if they're not Democratic Party employees, they might as fucking well be.
Yeah. And it's sad to see. I feel like if more of them actually were on the ground activists as well, they would take a different approach and they would actually see things for what they are. But just because they're basically armchair pundits. Not that I'm any better than them, but at least I understand the reality.
You're building a rain barrel garden. That has a more long-term impact than whatever the fuck Vosh does.
Right. Like,
okay. And I do watch him from time to time. I check in.
No hatred towards him.
And I can only stand him a week at a time now, where I'm watching like 5 of his videos because he gets so fucking annoying to me now. The way he talks and the way he talks about things.
It's just too theoretical. Not enough actual practice that you would see things differently.
But I will be honest and say I was not expecting this, and it is super weird to see Ian Vosh sitting. Well, I could see his legs for one thing. I suppose that was the weird thing. One weird thing. Two, he's on top of the white. I don't know if it was a White House. I think it was a building over, like looking over the White House. So it was a building.
Yeah, looking over some big
on the mall.
Important.
Interviewing Ro Khanna.
Yeah.
Like he's on Meet the Press.
Right.
It was so weird, and it's not something I was expecting. I did not expect this 4 years ago when these streamers started getting big, and I wasn't expecting it. I was figuring, they'll have careers, but they'll have careers doing what they're doing now.
Yeah.
But they're integrating it, and they're feeling like, yes, the important thing now for me is to get gigs, and I don't know if they're going to be on cable news in the next 4 years, for another 4 years.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Is this what they're staging themselves for? I hope not, but
it's certainly they're already rich, so it's not like they need the salaries.
You wouldn't think they need the money.
But
I don't know how rich.
You know what? They're not. They don't need to. They don't need to be hired by MSNBC because they are the direct competition, and in fact, they are overtaking them. At least when it comes to our age cohort or
for
the
sure.
Zoomers, even
Yeah,
they
even
are.
more so.
They are
Yeah.
but they are now the cable news network.
True enough.
But
Yeah,
they don't
so
have
that-
to be a corporation, or Ian or Vosh is a fucking corporation at this point. There's their own, started in a garage, but in 10 years will be like Tech Bros. But they will have this socialist veneer with the education they have and the affectations and like, yes. But with Vosh, it's more fake. I'm just using it as an example. It's more fake because he actually hasn't read the theory of leftist
and
politics.
has no interest in reading the theory.
He has not socialist, sociology books under his belt. Right. And he can read an academic paper, but he does it on stream on the fly,
right?
To make a argument against a Nazi, and it's just woo, it's woof. All right, now let's watch this.
Let's watch this. Oh, and before we start the video, thanks to the Follow Wizards bread book. Do appreciate it. We are looking at another bread in the chat tonight. I believe I've seen your name around some of the different channels, so welcome in. We're looking at Cornel West disassociating with the Green Party.
He doesn't need us anymore. That's
doesn't
what it
need
comes
us anymore.
To.
He's gonna do it on his own,
3 months,
and he's gonna do it better, according to him. So we'll see.
Just like Nader did in 2004.
Guys, so
2008.
We just got news yesterday.
Oh, this is the thing already. You are professionals. You know what audio engineering entails. Why are you doing this on the fly in the car with such scuffed audio? It just
well, it's just their quick bites, 13 minutes. And by the way, they do this like every day. I don't know if they're always traveling around or something, but Jesus. Well, it's the same angle. It's the same format. It depends, like the traffic they're in changes. It's just like fucking funny to me seeing people driving, in any kind of car traffic. But like you'll see it. I don't know if it's this clip or like I watched one other where it's the same angle, same length. And they were like, and Kyle was getting like, he was not road raging, but he was like, "Oh, come on, man!" Like he was like getting frustrated with someone in front of him.
Yeah, but like, I don't know if this is like a bit that they're doing. Like, commit to the bit. Get the wraparound sunglasses and
no. It's not a bit.
Hat.
They're not committed. They have not. They're not making fun with this. They don't sound like they're ever having fun. I think. It's just their way of like doing their shows without the studio box.
All right. Yeah, whatever. Let's get it.
Because they're a team now.
Cornel West is leaving the Green Party, not seeking their nomination anymore, and apparently he's still going to run for president, but he's going to try to run as an independent.
He's got the wipers going. Like, come on, man.
This is quite an interesting development. Now, one of the arguments that was one of the most pervasive arguments in favor of Cornel West is this idea of like, look, since he's running with the Green Party, we want, another option that's not just Democrat or Republican. We want to make the Green Party more prominent. We want to get them to 5% in the polls so that they can get matching funds and potentially be more viable down the road in the future. And now with this move,
some buzz marketing for CVS in the background there.
Suburban CVSs, because they're closing all the urban ones, by the way.
Right. Oh, because of the stealing and stuff, right?
Totally. That's what it is.
That's no longer on the table. It's no longer on the table to like vote for him because he's in the Green Party to beef up the Green Party for the future. So it's not just about Cornel West now, it's about the future of American politics. And with him running as an independent, now it's just like an up or down vote on Cornel West. And as we know, no independent is going to win. RFK is apparently about to run as an independent as well. And
God, what a train wreck that guy is too, RFK Jr. Oh my God. I hope we never have to cover him. I hope he just fades away, but that's just an aside.
I don't plan on covering him. It's now that he is also running unaffiliated, I think his campaign is going to matter less and less. But if it didn't before, but apparently he polls well with Republicans anyway.
Yeah,
and then this is where it's like, and that's why he has more reason to not leave the Democratic primary because he's not getting any traction there, but he could be building, voter interest.
Yeah, that very strange niche group that nominally cares about the environment and climate change, but also fervently denies COVID and vaccines and stuff. I mean, good luck to him.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's also discovering that, you know, the younger Democrats are, well, they're all still capitalist at the end of the day, but
well, true.
That the younger you go, the more left they are, regardless. And
Yeah,
he's an old guy, and
He's
he is
not
a
gonna appeal to them.
capitalist, and so yeah, he's not appealing to them. Let's see. I just wanted to speak to the Kyle and his ilk, kind of just focusing on winning, and it's like, well, you're not gonna win.
Yeah.
You know, it's like these people, these commentators, are not interested in having a left. They're not interested in having worker
Right.
power. They say we care about the policies. They are totally just about the bureaucracy of capitalist management.
Absolutely.
And they're just they're the media representatives of the PR wing.
Because they don't even want these alternative policies out there in the public view that could actually be challenging Democrats who are running and challenging them to
policies aside,
stand for more.
It's more the politics, the political practice that they write off. They write off all, like,
yeah.
They'll focus. They'll point out labor militancy like any other commentator does, and say that's like where the progress is happening. But like, how does that convert into more Democrats winning? You know, that's what it matters. Is we elect more Democrats. You elect more Democrats, you get more policy. You elect more progressive Democrats, you get better policy. It's this instrumentalist approach. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Instrumentalist approach to life, which is the capitalist approach. To make an instrument all things a commodity, or to rationalize, to make things rational. Is to make things an instrument, an object, not a subject. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
The voting public are objects to be,
right,
moved around on a chessboard.
Yeah. For an end, not you know, thinking, feeling, you know.
In this case, in this way, democracy is really quite not important.
Right. Yeah.
Or it is a means. It's we want more people voting because more people voting means more Democrats winning. That's all it really is.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then it's just a matter of what happens in terms of the what percentage of the votes are taken from Trump versus what percentage of the votes are theoretically taken from Biden, and from what
he does like the only so many voters trope. Like there's a pie of voters and they're getting split up. You never, engage more or activate more voters.
Yeah, even though the largest voting block is the non-voting block.
Even the ones that are more likely voters, that's not a guaranteed pie. It's an ever shrinking amount of accessible, like, voters that are in play. And it's getting smaller every cycle, because as it's been pointed out, like 60% of, I guess, registered voters or likely voters now consider themselves politically homeless, no party affiliation,
right?
No organization affiliation.
Yeah.
It looks like potentially RFK takes more votes from Trump, but Cornel West would take more votes from Biden. But now with Cornel running as an independent, I don't know. My sense of it is, Crystal, and you tell me if you agree with this.
Always the freaking spoiler too. What an entitled position to be in. Those are our votes that you're taking, as though if these people weren't in the race, those people wouldn't just stay home, which I believe that is the way the research points.
He's gotten a lot more aggro with this in the last 2 years. Obviously, I think him and Crystal are obviously getting these media opportunities or to climb the ladder of some kind, or they're getting big, because I think like 4 years ago he's sympathetic to third party politics, but only so long as it doesn't get in the way of Democrats winning or something.
Right.
It has to be safe or on this by ineffectual. It has to stay ineffectual. And so now he's getting really aggro and mad. And this goes for anyone who takes this tack of kind of bring up the whole like again, he personally has had people on a show. He's talked many times with people who answer the spoiler argument, and it goes over. Is it just? It's his job to not under. I mean, his salary of sorts depends on him not understanding the argument that the spoiler argument is bullshit. Mm-hmm. He never seems to make a counter argument to say, no, this is why I think what the Greens said is bullshit, or why they are spoilers.
It's ridiculous. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, I'm sympathetic. I'm all for third parties, as long as they don't build momentum and get too successful.
Or run a presidential
it has to be
campaign.
One or the other. Yeah. It's great.
And again, we don't run a presidential campaign. Somebody steps up to run one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we accept them as our candidate with an endorsement should they actually convince us they're serious, that they're doing this for the right reasons, and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. Because Roseanne Barr did not convince us that she was doing it for the right reasons.
Surprise.
And neither can Ventura.
Right.
And any other
so then too bad.
Celebrity
they don't get to go.
Celebrity independent, But
yeah, that's fine. I don't know. It just pick a lane, Kyle. Yeah. Either you like third parties and you want more power to them, or you don't because they get in the way of
well, he's never I think the last
only path
year
to power that you can
I
see.
think his recent whatever he's been doing the last year or so, I guess since Biden was elected during he's I think he's chosen his lane.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
I think it's probably he'll have less of an impact on the election. I mean, even just from the standpoint of
for sure,
the Green Party has a somewhat professional infrastructure, and they usually have ballot access in 48 states was the last time I remember, going back to like 2016, but sometimes it's like 46 or 44 or whatever.
It's more like 43. I'm not gonna exaggerate. It is. Yeah. It's rare that it's over 45.
Right.
Because there's 5 states we're just not going to get. They're just going to block. They're going to sue. They're going to make sure we're not on the ballot. Now we would have been in more ballot lines in 2020 if the Democrats didn't sue us off of them. And they're the ones challenging our ballot.
More so than anyone. Yep.
Yes, because they believe in the spoiler effect very strongly, but that's just a justification. And the fact that commentators repeat it makes them rubes.
Yeah.
And not journalists. They're not people who actually look,
really
investigate.
Right. Even if you are interested in that question, think of a new question. They shouldn't have to answer this question time and time, top of the line. Well, by the way, don't you feel bad that you're taking away from the Democrats? Just be original. Think of an original thought.
Yeah. Well, it's weird that because it's not a settled question somehow. And I get the whole, when you're a media person, you're doing media, you have to always assume that there's people watching who have never watched you before. Or they could be new viewers. They could be 18 and they've never watched a broadcast like this before. So there's something of a repetition, but at the same time, the consensus should be able to move somehow. The consensus that this is a settled question, the question of the spoiler effect, the question of a third party can be effective. So the question should change after a while. That one question settled, then the next question is, are you able to build a mass base with this campaign? How are you doing that? Have you proven you can do that? Have you done it on a local level in your own locality? Those are the tough questions for Greens, because we would have trouble answering them because it would be embarrassing, and it is to say no, we haven't built a mass base. It is embarrassing, but that's the embarrassment all lefties have, and it's a psychosis we're all in. Under.
All right. let's continue on so we can finish up.
It's over 40 states they have ballot access in. If you're running as an independent, my understanding is that's all on you to register yourself and be on the ballot in all these different places. And this is another interesting part of the conversation is like, well, what exactly happened here? You know, he went from the People's Party to the Green Party. I thought going with the People's Party at all in the first place was a fool's errand because it's not even really a political party and it's amateur hour over there, and they haven't gotten anybody elected at any level of government anywhere in the United States of America, not at the local level, not at the state level, not at the national level, etc. Not even freaking dog catcher somewhere in Tuscaloosa, right? But the Green Party was a little...
So he's not, I mean, he's not wrong. The PSL is pretty disorganized. And in many ways not a serious party, but like, are no more parties ever supposed to arise, Kyle? Like, this is it? This is all we can ever hope for? We're good with our two, and no one should ever even think about challenging at any level?
Well, so long as we, have the election system we have.
Oh, so long as we do.
Yes.
I don't know how we're ever going to change our election system.
Yeah, I think there's an assumption... There's a line where it's like, we're not going to change it. It's capitalist realism. We're not going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to change our material conditions or the social relations. We cannot change the ballot laws. It ignores all history, of course, because even movements can do reform.
Right.
But you can't. Reform and concessions are not power. But if you're going to rule out even concessions, or the concessions are bring back net neutrality, the labor relations board, because that's the thing. If all you care about is the labor organizing as the strategy, then a friendly labor relations board, that's all ever. Now instead of the Supreme Court, oh my God, I'm starting to notice this. Progressives aren't talking about the Supreme Court anymore as like you vote for Democrats to change the Supreme Court or to defend the liberals on the Supreme Court, Now it's the labor relations board that matters. That's a funny turnaround, isn't it? It never mattered before. It was never a thing that you had to vote for a Democrat for.
How many? 5 decades? Yeah.
It was never mentioned during Obama years. It's kind of interesting that way, actually, to think about that.
But geez, just the cynicism. I think that's really the biggest blind spot of all of these that just resign themselves to the blue no matter who, your TYT, your Kyle, your,
Report on the positives. All of you cynics aren't reporting on the positives. All you radicals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my bar for Biden was in hell, and he managed to clear that. So I guess I got to give him props where props are due, and maybe it's not such a bad thing to just vote solid blue and blah blah blah.
If you don't think this way, you're an accelerationist because you obviously want things to get worse.
Yes, you want people to get hurt.
You want Democrats to lose.
You want Democrats
Republicans
to lose.
Thus Republicans must win.
Yeah,
and that
Democrats themselves, being one of the two major parties in this country and having the most support in this country numerically, they have no responsibility to change their policies in order to ever win anyone's vote. No. It is our fault for not just getting in line with them.
They're such good managers. Obviously, that's enough. I mean, it was enough for machine politics to work.
A little more serious as an organization, and so I thought it was a good move to go to the Green Party. Probably should have launched with the Green Party to begin with.
Little more.
My guess
give us
is
some credit.
There's some sort, and look, guys, this is the dirty little secret about left politics, which I don't know how much of a secret it is anymore, but you got all sorts of pettiness and narcissism and ego, and you would think that the left, because it's more community-based than the right, that like, they'd be willing to like work towards a greater goal.
Might be some solidarity since that's supposed to be important.
Etc. Listen, I know because I've been involved in these organizations. I was a co-founder of Justice Democrats. I know every single person at these organizations, not even just at the top of the organizations, even staffers at the organization. Everybody thinks they're special and wants to be the one, and you get all these massive clashes in personality and these fights behind the scenes, and somebody's mad you're outshining me here, or somebody's mad that like out of the 1,000 positions you've taken. I only agree with 987 of them, and the other 13 of them, you're now my enemy.
You're now my mortal enemy.
So now, so what's the deal? I don't know. Is there some sort of, disagreement between Jill Stein and Cornel?
Rival. So more like rival. I can't speak to the Justice Dems and whatever shit show is going on there, or the competition between staffers. And all that, but
but he knows he's formed a left org within the Democratic Party, so he's been in the trenches with other
left organizing. Yeah. What I can speak to, yes, it's I don't think it's dirty laundry, but it's yes, we have our kooks in the party. We slowly push them out as we become more socialist, but then the disagreements change. They stop being about whether we're reformist or not, or whether we will call ourselves socialist or be a labor. Say we are also a labor party as well as an environmentalist party. So it always cringes. I'm cringing whenever anybody says, "Oh, they're just environmentalists. We need a labor party." I'm like, fuck off, dude. You like. Well, I mean, I want to say the opposite. Please come see that we're also a labor party. We want union organizers to join and be a part of us. They are welcome here. What you think we're going to turn you away and say, no, we're an environmentalist party. This whole material conditions, improvement is for workers. It's just, not part of our values. There are kooks, but they are a distraction. There are trolls. They are not the majority. They are ignorable.
They don't entrench themselves the way that they do with parties where you can have these centers of power, because they are very much less democratic as organizations. There's more power to be won in them. But with the Greens, at least being, ostensibly democratically organized, you just cannot amass the power. So you don't have that massive,
I can imagine injustice. I can imagine injustice Democrats that like some asshole was in some position where they could fuck a lot of things up or fuck people over. Yeah, that's not really happening in the Green Party. In 2020, my experience was you had these people, trolls. They were like, "Howie is cheating." They really kind of raised a fuss, and if one panicked, you could kind of panic in like, "Oh my God, they're going to sabotage our campaign. They're going to ruin something." Or they're going to go out on Facebook and let everybody know that Green Party is so fucked up and everyone's going to believe them. And I think maybe online I did see some of that, so maybe it was partly true, and I was a little panicked, and maybe our bad showing in 2020 was kind of, I don't know if I can really blame it, because see, there's that. And maybe that's correlated, but really the causation is just the blue no matter who streak that all lefties seem to have. And it shows up with Cornel West. Cornel West didn't not endorse Howie because of this, our process is corrupt, because he was told. It was because, I'm afraid of Trump and I need to vote against him. And that's one of those reasons we're just giving him the side eye when he's like, I'm going to run as a Green. Or it seems like the best move at the moment to run for the Green Party nomination.
Right.
But we're like giving the side eye, like, you didn't stand with any leftists in 2020. Or it's like, this is the best thing for the left to not vote for ourselves, to not organize a resistance to neoliberalism. Or opposition, not just resistance. So, okay.
Yeah. Let's move on.
It's not petty disagreements, but sometimes the petty disagreements come forward with like Ukraine. That's where a lot of Ukraine vaccines, mandates of healthcare mandates. That's where the fissures are in the Green Party, among socialists even, and how he's kind of in the doghouse because like he's taken he's pretty lonely right now, actually, it seems, to say we should arm Ukraine enough that the war can, that at least like there needs to be an evenness before there can be negotiation, peace. There needs to be an equality of arms. So let's arm Ukraine so at least there's a parity, and thus there's no one has an advantage.
Right.
And thus there'll be negotiations, because there's not going to be negotiation if one side thinks they can make a breakthrough. Yeah. Peace gets cheaper the more things are equal. So that was his case. It sounded like to me, and everyone hates him for it. It seems they're really hating on him for that. It's like, oh yeah. It gets exaggerated though, where it's like they're literally saying he's like, oh, he's gone crazy, he's an imperialist stooge now. It's like, come on, don't say that shit. Just say he's like, mistaken about like how he's doing practice.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. All right. Let's try and finish this up. We only got 10 minutes.
Jill Stein was helping him at the beginning of this process. Was there some sort of breakdown between Jamu Baraka, who was Jill Stein's VP, and Cornel West? Was there some sort of disagreement between Peter Dow and Jill Stein, or was Howie Hawkins, who was the previous guy who was the Green Party nominee? Is he involved somehow?
This is just his ignorance, so I've already covered that. I've already covered the dynamics here. That they're all pretty much trying to help Cornel.
Yeah, they're just trying to help him.
Do I need your help?
Screw it. I don't need any. Yeah.
Some sort of a disagreement. Are people who were quote unquote next in line after Howie Hawkins to be the head of the party, are they mad that Cornel West just did and he's more famous and has more clout, so he would probably get the nomination? Or to Cornel West here, hey, you're actually not going to win the nomination because you jumped the line and there are these other people? And
no, it pretty much sounds like from his own
he's projecting based on the Democrats with like Kamala or whatever, who's supposed to be next. This is he's repeating people like, oh, Bernie is jumping ahead of Hillary, or Obama jumped ahead of Hillary.
So and so's turn.
He's total projection.
Right, because that's what West said.
We have no dynamic like that. We have no dynamic about that. Like,
right. All West said was, I don't want to wait to be the nominee. I either want to be the nominee now, or I'm going to do it myself. That's basically the words that he used himself. So yeah, you're right. This is all just projection.
The Green Party primary would be small, and the people who would vote in it are longtime Green Party people. Do they resent the fact that this guy hopped in at the last minute?
Did we resent it when Nader hopped in at the last minute? Like, I don't think so.
What last minute? He's hopping in like 2 months ago. That's not the last minute.
Yeah.
What he means by last minute is someone who has not been a committed member or part of us,
Yeah.
And
we've done that in the past, and it's been good for us.
If we took that line though, we would not accept any new membership. We can't trust anyone who's new. But that's how those cult PSL organizations work, I think.
Yeah,
we really don't like people.
Oh, yeah. They got to be a committed member and
before you are allowed to do it. Before you're allowed to do anything, at least.
Yeah.
And that's how cults work. But we're not really like that. We relish people coming in, but we at least want them to show good faith and register as a green and pay dues and
say they're going to be on board with us and
say they're going to do our process.
Basic message. Yeah, right. And go through the process that we're not going to change just for some sparkly, nationally recognized candidate. Yeah.
Now, to say he's not too off base, that can be a possible motive / thing. Yes, if Ventura actually was seriously running in 2020. I would be resentful because he was jumping in at the very last minute. He was announcing he would seek our nomination I think it was a week before the deadline, before the Green Party petitions.
That's a little different. That's
the 100 signatures you need from each state.
Yeah.
Or state chapter. It was a week before that deadline.
Okay.
And so that was
and then he cried when he didn't.
He didn't really. He was encouraged to do this by this rabid fan base of his.
Yeah, okay.
And so they were the ones pushing and raising a fuss. He was just he was just getting pulled in, and that was I felt sad for him because his announcement was. I just had nothing but pity because he looked like he did not want to be doing this. Which is why when people suggest, Ventura should, and then it's also the other thing where the Greens should nominate X, like it's up to us, like we,
like they
have to say yes, right? It's like if we just nominate Ventura, he'd have to be our candidate. He'd have to be a person with a campaign all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
That's backwards. That's like saying, wow, that cart should really pull that horse around. Or that cart should really be carrying a horse in it. That's what they're saying.
That's funny. All right. We do got to wrap up pretty quick here, so let's get as far as we can. I mean, Kyle's not saying anything real profound or anything. So
I just want to get to the point where no. I think it's just the next minute.
Jesse Ventura, when he was considering running with the Green Party, they were just like, yeah, you're more famous. Yeah, you have more clout. Yeah, you'd have a better chance to get a higher percentage in the election. We don't care. You're not in the club. We want Howie Hawkins, who has the personality of a rotting banana, right? So, like...
Uh-huh. Oh, you're so bad, Kyle. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like not at all what you've described. If you jump in at the last minute and then you don't make it through the process, too bad, you know? Why is he criticizing them for not just bending over backwards to any Johnny come lately?
I remember in 2020, he did do a few segments about how Ventura should be their candidate. He'd be a good candidate for them. He has name recognition. It's celebrity matters.
Cool.
And we did have a segment of celebrity, we should run celebrity candidates in the past. They kind of got their just desserts after Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
And I think they stopped being a force. And maybe they dwindled, and maybe they had a slight voice in 2016, but they didn't have anybody to put up. So
yeah. But let me ask you, so did the Greens pull any nefarious strings to keep Ventura from being their candidate? Did people step in and block his
we had a
standard
we had a standard you had to reach.
Yeah.
That's as bad as having as a string pulling. Yeah.
So she's saying that they should have in fact flouted their whole process and did Ventura anyway, because Howie has the personality of a rotting banana.
Having a process is the crime.
Come on, man.
Having the process is the crime. We should be like the Justice Dems. We just pick and endorse people, and we're just an unelected committee that makes decisions.
Yeah, that's bullshit. And did Kyle ever interview Howie Hawkins? I kind of doubt it.
No. I think I could look it up, but I don't remember. I tried to watch every Howie appearance, or I would search to see his appearances, and it was not a Secular Report one, Secular Talk one. No, he didn't.
Whatever.
I don't. He says he has the personality of a rotting banana. And
that's fine. He doesn't have to be for Kyle. But like, if he's the one that makes it through the process and he does things in a democratic way,
he had a campaign.
Then whatever. That's our candidate. So like, we're just supposed to throw him out because.
And yes, there is something sad about. There is something not good to say. Yeah, he was the only one with a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that does not speak well of our party, but really it speaks to the wider. But what it does is it speaks to the wider climate of 2020, where no one else was, besides one of our most loyal organizers, was willing to step up. No one else was willing to step up. Even Stein, I think, was not willing to step up. Maybe I don't know if she was doing that year, but again, after 2 cycles worth, I was fine with her not being the candidate again. I think everyone was.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't want to run the same person every goddamn year.
No, we want to try someone new.
But no one else was interested. No one outside the party certainly wasn't. And
sure.
And certainly wasn't Cornel West. He could have been, Howie was the one with a campaign. And it does kind of suck. He was kind of the only choice for us. But he was also the one I knew because I'm a New Yorker and he is too. So I'm in his corner.
I was not aware of him.
I'm in his corner that way. Yeah.
But I mean that's fine. Like whatever. Like
but that meant that he had to go to the other Green Party chapters and
go through the process.
Go for the process and say, like, look at me, look at what I do and what I have done. I'm a Teamster, lifelong Teamster.
So so I'm not even sure what Kyle is advocating for here. That would
Vote blue no matter who. But
Yeah,
Tina, there is no alternative.
Basically, I mean I guess that is really what he's doing. He's just kicking the outside.
Anyway, last minute, you don't have to play more, but he makes this subtle thing that actually, keep going. It'll be the last minute.
What is it? I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of internal drama thing behind the scenes. That's the only thing.
They're
that
assuming
really
that, but
makes sense. I don't know if you saw this, babe, but it looks Jill Stein is now thinking of running again with Cornell dropping out. So I mean, and the other thing I would say is even outside of just the technical questions of are you going to ballot access and not having this,
so
more professional
pause there. So Kyle says once she's done talking, Kyle says something really smarmy about Stein running for president or something like that.
Right, let's get up to that.
And I'd love that. He leans forward like oh God, real road ragey.
Cornel West and his people, or was the issue with both of them?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you're doing your third switcheroo, second switcheroo, third
right.
switcheroo.
So your it's the third party, right? It's when from People's Party to.
I just want to say, Crystal's being really stupid.
This is all about knows. It's.
Oh, rather no, she's right about because when Stein was on Sabby Saf, she did say, now that I'm not being a campaign manager or involved with the West campaign, I'm not going to be. He's basically, I mean, I replaced myself. I said hire Peter Dow, but of course she could still be involved.
Yeah.
But now that I'm not going to be involved with this, I'm thinking about running for office. But she didn't say that. She said I'm thinking about running for Congress.
Oh, which is totally different than
which is way more sensible.
Yeah, that's fine.
But of course, these chuckle fucks assume that means run for president, because all they're talking about is who's fucking president.
Nice comment there, bud. All right, we do have to wrap it up. It is 9 o'clock now.
So we're on with that. Stein for Congress. I'll be pitching in with that.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts.
All power to her. So,
because when you have a whole year ahead of you, and you basically what's my project going to be? Well, I have experience doing this, and I will do it. Yeah, and Congress is probably better. I think she ran for governor. Was her kind of Massachusetts run, and I don't know how well. She didn't do too well. But Congress is way more winnable. It's 60,000 people. Is then your the space you have to cover. So anyway, continues. I've been doing a reading series of sorts where I'm reading chapters from the biography of Mayor Corning, he was mayor for 43 years, but he's just representative of a political machine that lasted 75 years, and so it's a good dive into how political organizations keep power, why they keep power, or I mean, rather, how corrupt ones keep power in particular, but whether it's Republican or Democrat, they're all capitalists, and managing capitalist relations. And if that's, very laissez-faire, yeah, okay. But it's kind of weird in how they kind of buffet the type of capitalism one has by doing some amount of charity work.
Cool. Well, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, look forward to that. Cool. Good idea there, bud. Anyway, glad to have you on the program. Thanks as always for bringing that stuff for us to pick over.
To chew on, yeah.
So
I don't know what I'm a little relieved actually, but I don't know what we're going to be doing next year. But
yeah.
I know that locally, me and my, few people we're with, we want to do some kind of local campaign, a little reform or some kind of issue that we can deep canvas around or something like that. But again, I don't have time for it. So I'm doing my radio project. So it's sort of it's that spot we're in where there's so many things to be doing that need to be done, and you just got to pick your project and just see how many connections you can make.
Definitely so. But sounds like things are at least on the upswing at the radio station a little bit. So
they're
at least
moving. It's not
a path
stagnant.
forward.
There's definitely some things to work out, and there always will be.
That's good.
I'm gonna reassess in another 3 months, as I usually do, I think. But I mean, I wasn't over the winter because that's, again, I was the impediment doing union work and trying to do other things. Now that I'm fully engaged, it's like now I'm going to assess every 3 months. Is this still worth doing? Is there a dead end here with the management?
For sure.
If they move forward with actually getting underwriters and now there's bills being paid, then I'll feel a lot better.
Yeah, I imagine so. All right. Well, thanks again for being on, and I will see you again in a couple weeks. So have a good one.
Later. Thanks for.
So that was Dan from the Three Left Show and What's Left in Albany. Put the links to the 2 latest shows. I'll give you the link to the website itself. And then we will see who we're going to raid tonight. Or even if we're going to bother with raiding or just shout someone out instead. Oh, looks like we have a few people in chat. Oh, the local FBI office. Like, which one? Which one's the local one? Your local one? I don't know if they care about little old me streaming to a handful of people, but I appreciate your concern, comrade. All right, let's see who's on Twitch right now. I'm clear in the Pacific Northwest. Well, man, you got my number. Clearly been watching this show for a while. I'm always talking about Pacific Northwest comedy. That's fine. You say that like that's an insult. I take that as a badge of pride. But let's see who's on Twitch, who we can raid into. So hold tight if you have any suggestions of who to raid. Now's the time to get them out of there. I think maybe we'll do Carpe Pax. Haven't raided them in quite some time. Looking like they're doing... Maybe I'll pick someone else. Looks like he's not doing an active stream. Just playing some music, which is cool too. Who else is on? EPA regulations. I think we'll pick them tonight. Just playing some games. So go check out EPA regulations on Twitch. You're a funny guy there, Mr. ICBM. Go check out EPA regulations and we'll begin the raid momentarily. All right. I love how you think it's illegal to be communist in this day and age, as though we live in the McCarthy era. That's cute. Here goes the raid. See you all probably next weekend. Good thing you don't have anything to say about it, ICBM.